Out of the 6 possible suspects who may have finally brought down abusive villain Theo Silverton, my bet is firmly on Gary Windass. Unlike several others under suspicion, including George Shuttleworth or Christina Boyd, Gary was one of the last people to accept that Theo had been abusing Todd Grimshaw behind closed doors. In fact, Gary trusted Theo so much that he even offered him work at the builder's yard, which only made the eventual betrayal hit even harder. Gary has never tolerated bullies. When Liam Connor's tormentor pushed things too far, Gary violently confronted the teen in a moment of fury. Over the years, he has repeatedly shown that he'll do whatever it takes to defend the people closest to him. He once tampered with the factory roof in a desperate attempt to settle debts with loan shark Rick Nealon, a reckless decision that indirectly led to Rana Habib's tragic death. Later, Gary killed Rick during a confrontation and eventually stepped into the criminal's shoes, becoming increasingly dangerous himself. Although Gary has worked hard to leave his darker side behind, largely thanks to the steadying influence of Maria Connor, his temper still simmers beneath the surface. Learning that Theo had secretly been abusing Todd clearly awakened that violent streak once again. There are already 2 major clues pointing in Gary's direction. First came the incident where he destroyed Theo's van with a sledgehammer, an outburst unfortunately captured on CCTV. The second was an aggressive text message later sent to Theo's phone that read, "I'm coming for you." It's no surprise that DS Lisa Connor Swain and DS Kit Green quickly brought Gary in for questioning. For now, however, attention has shifted towards other suspects. Summer Spellman raised alarm bells after writing revenge fantasies about killing Theo in her journal following the death of her adoptive father. Meanwhile, Theo's former wife Danielle Silverton appeared overly eager to accuse Todd of murder, suggesting he may have wanted Theo's life insurance payout. Elsewhere, Maria is left stunned when Gary suddenly lashes out after she mentions Sarah forgetting Bethany's birthday. His unusually fierce defense of Sarah leaves Maria confused and suspicious. Could Gary's strange behavior be connected to the attack on Sarah by unstable troublemaker Jody Ramsey on the same night Theo died? Some Coronation Street viewers certainly think there's more going on. Fans online have started speculating that Gary and Sarah may have shared another secret encounter that evening. One viewer suggested both characters have been acting out of character recently and hinted that their growing closeness could be significant. Another fan claimed Gary and Sarah have always shared stronger chemistry than with their other partners and believes the show is deliberately teasing a reunion. The suspicions don't end there. The following day, Kit questions Gary about Todd's missing phone, a crucial piece of evidence in the murder investigation. The device vanished on the night Theo died before later turning up at a pawn shop. Forensic analysis revealed Brody Michaelis' fingerprints on it, leading to his arrest. But then Kit uncovers another shocking detail. The phone had originally been discovered inside Gary's skip. Although Gary pretends to know nothing about it, Kit later tells Lisa he's convinced Gary is hiding something important and vows to uncover the truth. So what exactly is Gary concealing? A killing, a secret affair, or something even darker? Tyrone's world is set to spiral further out of control in upcoming Coronation Street scenes as Carl makes a chilling promise that leaves him rattled. The nightmare began shortly before Tyrone crossed paths with Summer. In a disastrous accident, Tyrone stumbled into the jack supporting Kevin Webster's car while Carl was underneath it. At the time, Carl had secretly been tampering with the brakes following a bitter confrontation with Kevin and the disappearance of the money he planned to flee with. The vehicle suddenly crashed down onto Carl, leaving him badly injured. Terrified by what had happened, Tyrone panicked and fled the garage. During his escape, he awkwardly encountered Summer before later running into Ronnie Bailey, who quickly took charge of the situation. Ronnie placed the injured Carl into his own vehicle, dropped him outside the hospital, and later carefully cleaned the car to remove any evidence connecting him to the incident. The reason Tyrone refuses to give Summer the alibi she desperately needs is because it would place him near the garage when Carl suffered his horrific injuries. It would also expose Ronnie's involvement in secretly transporting Carl to hospital and covering up the truth. But Tyrone's conscience is beginning to destroy him. Deep down, he knows Summer is sitting in a prison cell because he stayed silent, and the guilt is becoming unbearable. Ronnie repeatedly urges Tyrone to stay calm and trust that the situation will eventually sort itself out, but Tyrone is clearly struggling to cope with the pressure. Things become even more dangerous when Carl overhears a tense exchange between Tyrone and Todd Grimshaw. Todd had just visited a devastated Summer, who couldn't understand why Tyrone appeared to be lying. Sensing an opportunity to create chaos, Carl secretly listened as Tyrone admitted he was consumed by guilt and terrified of being caught for misleading the police. Although Ronnie tried to calm the situation and keep Carl away from the conversation, the damage had already been done. Next week, Carl makes it crystal clear that Tyrone isn't escaping consequences anytime soon. Arriving confidently at the Rovers while Fizz heads upstairs, Carl immediately notices Tyrone's unease and decides to push him further. Like a predator spotting weakness, he begins deliberately playing mind games with him. Tyrone attempts to stand his ground and angrily tells Carl to get lost, but Carl refuses to back down. Instead, he moves closer, enjoying every second of Tyrone's growing discomfort. When Carl challenges Tyrone to retaliate and Tyrone hesitates, Carl realizes he has the upper hand. Sitting casually on a bar stool, he smugly points out that Tyrone's expression is filled with both panic and guilt. As Tyrone desperately tries to hide his fear, Carl delivers a sinister warning. He promises he'll uncover exactly what Tyrone is concealing because he's always good at finding things out. Satisfied that he's shaken Tyrone badly enough, Carl eventually strolls over to the bar, leaving Tyrone visibly tense and struggling to steady himself. Soap history tells us that secrets never stay hidden forever, and it seems inevitable that Carl will eventually uncover the truth about what Tyrone accidentally did to him. The bigger question is what happens once he does. Carl is already proving himself to be a dangerous enemy, but with Ronnie standing firmly beside Tyrone, could that stop Carl from seeking revenge? And meanwhile, how much longer will Summer remain trapped behind bars for something she didn't do? Coronation Street star Rob Mallard has revealed that the dramatic events airing next week serve as a major turning point for Daniel Osborne. In the upcoming episodes, Daniel wakes after a heavy night of drinking, only to realize that his young son Bertie has vanished. As panic sets in, matters spiral even further when Daniel accidentally injures Ken Barlow during a heated confrontation involving Adam. Soon afterwards, social services arrive at his doorstep, leaving Daniel terrified about what could happen next. Speaking about the storyline, Mallard explained that the situation completely shakes Daniel and forces him to confront the reality of his actions. He said Daniel becomes overwhelmed with fear that Bertie could be taken away from him, especially because he feels desperate to honor the promises he once made to Sinead. The actor also discussed why Daniel's emotions often explode during confrontations with Ken. According to Mallard, whenever Daniel feels cornered, he lashes out defensively and much of his unresolved resentment towards his father resurfaces. Despite their relationship improving over the years, Daniel still carries emotional scars from feeling abandoned during childhood. Mallard explained that when portraying scenes between Daniel and Ken, he intentionally plays Daniel with the emotional immaturity of a teenager. In his eyes, Daniel never truly moved past the hurt he experienced growing up, which is why he often reacts to Ken with frustration and rebellion rather than maturity. Although Daniel is already clearly struggling and losing control, Mallard believes his downfall could become even more severe. He suggested that Daniel may continue making increasingly destructive choices, hinting that once someone begins slipping, it becomes easier to spiral further. The actor even suggested that a temporary loss of custody for Bertie could become part of Daniel's journey, forcing him to finally face the consequences of his behavior and learn an important lesson. Coronation Street continues airing on ITV1 during weeknights and is also available for streaming on ITVX and YouTube.